Hey guys, today we are just going to learn and talk about golden tests in Flutter. Visual tests that make sure your UI hasn't changed unexpectedly at least. So, what is golden test? Run the widget in fixed environment, take a snapshot, the golden itself, and compare it to reference image. If they differ, then the test fail and show you the visual difference. That's something very cool. So before that, this is the app that we are just going to build because I wanted to build the app with you before, like at least some cool UI. And this is going to look like this. You have also this small animation there. It is kind of low-t, but I just decided to use Rive in order to change, a little bit and see how Rive work, at least the integration, not the drawing, and use GoRouter for everything related to the navigation. So very simple, not anything complex, very straightforward, and have this profile section though. I was thinking at the beginning adding like clean architecture to have like, separated data, domain, and presentation layer. But my main focus are just going to be today the UI and the golden test. What is the golden test? For you at the end of the video, we are just going to have like something like this. If I close other tab, then the code are just going to look like this, for example, for some of them. And this is what we just called golden, or at least a snapshot, because you can use it, for example, for some reusable component. In our case, today there is no introduction. I'm just going to tell you what we are just going to learn directly. So in our case, we have those components, for example. And if we want to make sure that this is good every time we made like some change, like UI change in our app, it not downgrade something, we should just use golden test at least. So very for like step screen section, not those screen that can change like very often. And when not to use it, I mean not on the full page and not on like scrolling and dynamic data, for example, because it won't make like any big interest. So in our case, this is, for example, the snapshot, and every time you are just going to run the text, you can see, for example, if I run the text and if there is something weird, or then the text are just going to tell me like there is something weird and I'm failing because, for example, you change like the spacing, you replace the color, you remove like some title you should not, and those kind of quick bug you just have every time when you are building like mobile app basically. And this is what we are just going to learn with this cool UI though. I hope you are ready, and if that is the case, let's go. Hey guys, today we are just going to work on this design. I found this beautiful design on Drive, and I was like, let's try to build or at least get inspired from something like this. So our final result are just going to look like this. Let me just show you this, right? So I just try to customize it a little bit so we can play around with that. But this is just like the design itself. So we are just going to build like something together. Perfect. So we are just going to start with kind of empty project. As always, if you see there, we have lib and there is almost like nothing. So before just start writing like any snippet of code, let's just try to create or work on the app structure. So what we are just going to do first of all is to try to separate this in different folder that we are just going to need. So for example, I can create like one for the app, and inside app, for example, we are just going to have like design, but this is not mandatory. It's just me because for example, in the design I'm just going to have like design tokens, and these are just going to be like kind of my design system, where I'm just going to have, for example, let's suppose that I have this and say this is just for spacing, so I will have different kind of spacing, for example. So very simple, but you will understand later. So yeah, let's suppose that we have like design there. Now we are just going to add theme as well, because if we want to manage theme, we can do it like very easily, and without, yeah. So let me, okay, there we will have app, and the app are going to be like the entry point. Basically in our main, we are just going to call the app. We can delete like test, for example, and there let's create another, the app route, because we are just going to use like GoRouter for routing there and play with it around, so we have the app. We are just going to have, so inside the app, this is like kind of main configuration about our app. Yeah, we are just going to have like the core, for example, and inside core we can have like data, or yeah, these are going to be the place where if you want to manage API data, for example, or API call, yeah, we can just do it without like any hesitation. So let's create the main folder that we are just going to need, and these are just going to be like feature, and inside feature, let me just rename this. Okay, inside feature we are just going to have like different file, like home, for example, profile, and session. Okay, so these are going to be like our three main feature. So I mean, I call it like feature, but yeah, the home is kind of like the dashboard, the profile, and the session, where we are just going to have like the list of session, or even if like session data page, or for example. So after that, let's create another one called chart. We can have like widget there, and okay, perfect. Yeah, since we have this now, I can also add, for example, presentation in all of those modules, because presentation are going to be the layer where we are just going to create like our pages, yeah. Now the next step are just going to be, we are just going to work on the bottom nav. Okay, perfect. Now we are just going to start with our pub spec. So let's install some packages that we're just going to need for our project. So the first one are just going to be the GoRouter. And the purpose of having the GoRouter is to manage like everything or anything related to the routing. And the second is Flutter block, in order to manage, I can say, very easily our state management. Hive is going to be for storage, like our database, for example. So let's install. Yeah, and I can add collection if we want to make like test later. I think this version should be fine. If you want to manage like or parse date, for example, it will be like much easier to use int and Rive in case we want to add like some animation. So those are different packages. I'm trying to take my time so you can better understand like each step. I'm not going to, try to speed up. So here, as you can see, we can enable like asset. So for that, we just need to add the asset, so we can add mock in case we want to mock some API, for example, and images. But for that, we need to come to our asset folder. Let me just create one. So we are just going to have like assets, and inside assets, then we should have like mock, same name, and yeah, images. Yeah, this is like kind of the first step. So once we have this, now we are just going to move to our main and try to clean up like everything. But before that, yeah, let's just do like Flutter pip get, or we can just run like get dependencies. It will just build this, and if everything is good, then it's fine. So before that, I want us to went to our design system and try already to implement some I can say code or basic code. So here what we are just going to do is to call this class DT, and this is just for design token, and we can already define some values. Probably we are just going to need it in the app, so let's just jump on. Okay, yeah, okay. We can also add some just for the color. So for example, there, I think if I just import material, it should be fine. So we have background, one for text, for example, one for the card yellow, and yeah, so we can have this. I can have like those color very easily. So okay, yeah, we should be fine with this. So let's just went to our app, and what we are just going to do there is to almost like clean everything, you know, because we have my app, but we are not going to use my app or my homepage anymore. So let's make this as a feature, because we are just going to need, and here we should have the app that we are just going to call, and this is the place where we are just going to define all the logic for our app. But before that, let's initialize Hive. This, of course, we are just going to need it later. I mean, for that we just need to import Hive, for example, and yeah, and let's call it app blocks, for example. So you should keep in mind that we will use this layer for tiny cache preference or other. Now we should move to app, and inside app, let's create a stateless, for example. Okay, so if I come up there, I can import this now. Okay, like this. Okay, and what we are just going to do is to initialize our GoRouter, and for this we should build our router logic. But yeah, let me so we are just going to need one for the theme. So, and for our root configuration, we are just going to need to build our build router, So let's focus on this, for example, on the build router. So for that, I can say move into, let me just try to import GoRouter there. Okay, should be much easier. Now in app router, what we are just going to do there, we are just going to come and to initialize. I think I should. Okay. Okay. And if we have this, then by default, for example, we can set like the default route. And for the routing, we are just going to have like a list of route. So if I come up there, for example, I can just import this. And this route or routing logic are just going to be managed by our GoRouter. So there I will specify other route just in some minutes. Yeah, I'll show you. And then for the theme, technically I can just remove and use the theme by the default theme, for example. But if you want to customize, for example, the theme that you want to use, you can come up there and technically just create like theme data. Yes. And inside this one, for example, we can have some default value where we specify like are we going to use material 3, for example. What is going to be like, let me just import the design. Okay, okay. And there with the copy width, what we can do or what we can decide to do, for example, is to apply some specific code. So for example, there you are going to understand. So for example, for each text that I'm just going to have, if you remember, if I click on text, we are just going to apply like black color, for example, Let me continue and display color. And here you can almost decide to add like default parameter. This is and you can do it for dark mode as well if you want to add dark mode, or so this is kind of default configuration, but depending on the app you want to build, so for example for this, yes, I can decide, for example, to, let's say, add some radius, so what I'm just going to do is to come up there and say, for the card you should apply like 20 as radius. So by default, what we are just going to do, he's going to come up there and say, okay, you want me to apply, it can be, okay, should be fine now. Perfect. Now if we come there, now we can just decide to import our theme like very easily. Went to our like build router, and inside our router we are just going to need to initialize different pages, so the first one that we are just going to have, so we can start and say for that, let me import the state. Okay, perfect. I was looking for this one. So the builder, what we are just going to do is the place where we are just going to define, for example, our bottom scaffold, and inside our bottom scaffold, this is the place where we are just going basically to design the app bar that we are just going to need or to show, very simple. And the branches, if I click on this, I don't know if we can just see it like in the documentation, but yeah, separate navigator will be great for each of these branching using navigator key specified in stateful shell branch. So basically what this does mean is for each branches that we are just going to have, we should specify a stateful shell branch, like let me just write it, stateful shell branch, and yeah, and this we are just going to have like a route with the path of each main page that we want. So for example, for the name, what we can decide to do, for example, is to create like an enum. Let's create like, so we can have like home, session, profile, and there just use okay. And page builder, context, and the state. And yeah, let's just mock this and write home, for example. So we are just going to copy this basically, and just to apply, if you want to add like other route, for example, so let's suppose that we have, I don't know, like session profile. So we will add like session and profile there. Okay, since we have this now, it means that in our app, if you see, we are just working on the main workflow. In the init of the app, you are just going to have, this is like the entry point. So this is for initialize Rive, that we are just going to see the Y letter. And inside the app, by default, we have like the build router there that are just going to manage like all the routing system. This is for the theme. Like this is like very simple, not something weird or hard. And inside the theme, we just override some behavior, like for the card, for the text, for example. Every text should be like in black, for example, at least for the light mode. And yeah, let me just use the same there. So this is for our design token that we are just going to use. So if you decide to change, for example, the background, it should apply for the whole app, and you should not replace it like, you know, every time. But yeah, and in our app root, now we are just going to work on bottom nav scaffolder. But the reason why I decide, for example, in the root, you can decide, for example, to just call GoRouter like this, and these are just going to work. I should probably just define this, and this is like the very easiest way to do it for all your page. But the thing with this, the thing with just calling like GoRouter like this, you are not going to have like, you are not going to make your data persistent. Like for example, if you switch from one page from another and you scroll, for example, on the second page, it will just lose the current state of the page. But we are just going to better understand why later. Yeah, I will come up and just explain it in details. So now there, what we just do is define like each route, the home, the session, and the profile, basically. And now we are just going to work on the bottom nav scaffold, because yeah, now this is the main thing that we should show. If I decide, for example, to run the app, it won't work, yeah, because this one is missing. So now let's come up directly in our widget. So there we can create like nav, and inside that we have like bottom nav. And inside the bottom nav, what we are just going to do, is to create a, let's create like a stateful and just call it like bottom nav scaffold, and just try to import material. Wait. Okay. Can you just please import material? Okay, perfect. Yeah. So now we are just going to have full. Okay, it's not saying GoRouter, so I should probably just import it. Should be like much easier. Okay, yeah. And these are going to be required if you want to pass it. Okay. Now I'm just going to add a function, because each time we are just going to tap on one menu, we are just going to redirect this one. Okay, this is for the redirection. But now, yeah, let's work. So the shell is going to be like the body, as you can see it. And now we are just going to have the navigation bar. So if I come up there, I do this. Okay, now yeah, we can start working on the nav bar. So what I'm just going to do is container, yeah, bottom. This one should be like rename button nav, like this. Okay. For example, we should just apply some border radius on it, and yeah. But for now, let me just I wanted to have something that's at least just let's just have this, for example, child text okay, you're getting an error. Oh yeah, probably because we need to restart. Okay, let's just yeah, we can just restart this like easily, and yeah, let's just restart. Okay. So it's running. I mean, if it's running, then we can continue. Okay, he said no variant. Okay, he said no variant. Find. Oh, at least, yeah. Okay, and if I restart, what happened? Now I guess should working, but yeah. Okay. So duplication full path, connection home session. Okay, that's normal. He's saying the same name for all the configuration, so it means that the name should be unique. Okay, just because we just forgot. I was probably going to do the same error. No, okay, sorry. home, session, and profile. And if I restart, as you can see now, we have our so I mean, if I just turn like these two into red, then you can see like home, session, and profile, right? Yeah, this is like very ugly, but let's just work on the UI and try to make it better. Yeah, so I was there. So what I wanted, yeah, I'm just going to let's just hard code this for now. And of course, if you came up there, like in the design token, we are just going to replace like with DT and you know, probably we just have like all those value there. So let me just write it like that, and then I will just change it. So yeah, okay, and what we can do, let me just see if I can just box decoration. Okay, so for example, if I do this, we are just going to see like we have red. So if I apply the background, so you have the background and we have this. So now we should work on the text. So for the text, we are just going to, let's create what we are just going to do, let's create like a class there that we are just going to call like nav item. At least what I can do, yeah, perfect. Okay, and the callback where if the user tap we should. So are you going to create, okay, yeah, looks great. So let me just copy this and there, let's replace, and for the child we should just work box decoration, and if it is selected, okay, is selected, Okay, so I think now we can just come up there and just use this very easily. Okay, this should be like the first one and should redirect to the first one. Let's copy this. Okay, okay, perfect. And yeah, as you can see, for example, I'm pretty sure you can't really see it, but let me just see if I can just wrap this into sender. We are just going to work on those pages or so. I mean, these are probably going to be the next step, but if I restart, as you can see now we have home. If I change, sorry, I'm using like the same, yeah, let's suppose that we have something. Do we have like fitness? Yeah, something, and person, for example. Okay, and if I restart, as you can see we have home, session, and profile, for example. So we just build our first bottom nav, and this is like persistent with the current page, because every time we are just going to show the current page that we are on. So this is like very interesting. Hope you all like it. I mean, you can just hit the like button and let's continue. Yeah, now we are just going to work on those pages like the home, session, and profile. But before that, I know I'm just going to bother you again, but let's work on the design token. So I'm just going to add like some color and size that we're just going to use, but I think those are kind of like, you know, mandatory, if I can say that. But yeah, let's just do this. So first of all, here we have like the spacing, scale, for example, and there we are just going to add like the radius or the radii itself. Yeah, so let's just change those value. I think we can just keep this and add one. Yeah, I could probably just write this on my own and just let you copy paste this, but you know, let me just do it in front of you directly. So background color, and there we are just going to use and black there. Okay, so the text primary, okay, and the gray one as well. Okay, Let me just copy this. So, oh yeah, I just work on the card yellow, card blue, red, teal, and orange. Yeah. Okay. Now, let me just okay. Challenge gradient and metric cards color. Okay. There we should put like green. Let's add medium and hard. Social media color, I can say social pink, social red, and social blue. Red, blue. We are almost done. I know this is not the funniest part, but yeah, shadow color, shadow light, shadow medium, and shadow dark. Okay, now let's work on border light and border gray. Okay, we are almost done. I know. This is like the last one, the icon color. So icon gray and icon light gray. Now we can start working on the home page. After all of this, hope that I haven't forgot. I didn't. Oh, okay. Working well. I think I just change. So yeah, maybe this one should just be like the black. Yeah. Let me just restart. Okay, black. Okay, now working fine. So yeah, let's now work on the home page. So for the home page, we are just going to have like different components. I can decide to just open this, but I should create, first of all, let's went to the home presentation and let's create like home page. I thought we just already create this, so we are just going to have like home, profile, and session. Okay, so state full widget, home page. Let's try to import material. This home page, we are just going to use it directly on what it is, the app root one. Okay, okay, perfect. And if I restart, yeah, okay. So now we have this page, and this is kind of like empty because we are just using like the placeholder, right? So now we are just going to start. If you remember, we had like the app bar. So the first thing that we are just going to work on are going to be like the app bar, right? So let's just create like a scaffold there, the app bar, and then the body. Just put like this. Okay, restart. Okay. And the background is kind of like white, but yeah. So the background, elevation, okay. So now we're just going to have like, okay, so you have the background, and in the title we are going to have like almost everything. So in the title, what we are just going to do is to have like different components. So the profile picture just there, the greeting and dates like in the middle, and the search icon yeah, on the right, you know. So let's just start with the profile first of all. So I create like a container, okay, going to have like okay. If you remember, now we have just like different color that we already set. So let's just use those variable. Okay, you know, now we have like this little thing there. So what we can do is just to add like the child and use clip oval and these are going to have like kind of browned effect on the image. So let's use like image network, and this is the place where we are just going to pass the URL. But in case we have like some error, we should handle this, properly. So yeah, let's create a default. Okay, so I can decide to add like some opacity. I really like to use with opacity. Yeah, you can use like with value as well, but I know this is depreciate that, but yeah. So we have this. So if I decide, for example, to put like some, I can say, existing image that work. I don't know if I have, if this URL should work. Okay, like you can see, we have this one that's kind of like match perfectly, and if you put like a good image, then it's going to work. But if, for example, I say there, like, I don't know, like your own image, for example, your own image.com, and I refresh, then it's going to show like the error builder component that we just created there. Yeah. So it's in case we have like some error with the user, image. So this is the first thing. Now we are just going to work on the second thing, and these are going to be like the the title that we are just going to have in the middle of the page, or at least okay. I can say hello Fabio. Okay, and for the color, text primary. Okay, and we should show, for example, like the date today. Let's play around with date format. Yeah, this one should be import from, I don't know why he can't like import it, but let me just try to just import. Okay, yeah, should be fine now. So this is the format from the package that we have been using. Okay. Okay. Let me just try to show first of all. Okay. Okay, now let's work on the style, font size, color. I think it is like the secondary text. Yeah, okay. So this is kind of like the, I can say the second widget. So let's just add like some spacing, sized box with dt dot is for, okay, if I refresh, okay, and now let's just add like the search icon that we're just going to add there. So container, okay, okay, and let's just use, okay, yeah. So we have like our app bar. For the body, now we are just going to have like different components in our body. So these are going to be like the main. So this is just for the list, and here. So we are just going to have one for daily challenge card, that we are just going to call like daily challenge card. Then one for our weekly list components. So weekly list components. Your plan section. Okay, one for plan card. You know, this is like for the card that we have. The weekly component is the date one. Scroll up the plan, if you remember, and the last one are just going to be like the social media card. So we are just going to split it just like this. Yeah, nice. So let's continue with the daily challenge card. So for the daily challenge card, we are just going to have a container basically. So let me just copy the title, come up there. I mean, in the complete project, you should just put this in a widget, like, to be honest, or in shared components. like we just have shared there, and you should put it like somewhere, or maybe just in the presentation you should create like another called like widgets, and those are just going to be like the widgets for the homepage basically. And yeah, so let me create like a stateless. Okay, and now we are just going to have like a container. So okay, okay, that's normal. I forgot to put it like a double. So the decoration, okay, okay, and this is just the end. So let's add like some border radius. Okay, the light should be in blur. Okay, now we are just going to work on the, I can say, the inner body. So let's add a child. And these are just going to be like the first part of the card, where we have like almost everything, like the title, the date, different images, and so on. So yeah. Okay. and let's add like some color. Let's run to see first of all what this is looks like. Oh yeah, what is happening? You say too many. Oh, okay. Yeah. What? Yeah, we don't need like a constructor. I think this. No, wait. Okay. I got it, and this is like normal. So yeah, I thought that I was going like sick. Okay, yeah, and if I run this now, okay, we can see how just the beginning. So the title there, the subtitle, if I may call it like that, with the kind of mock of the dates. And now we are just going to add the, how does I call it, like the row where we can see like the user ships, very basically. So yeah, let me just add some spacing. These are going to be needed, and yeah, remember the thing with like user profile that we had. So for that, I think we are just going to need like some class there. Let's create stateless widget and call it like user. Yeah. So let's just use the image and try to fit this. First of all, let me just put this like yeah, if I just decide to use it, okay, for example like this, I should have like one image where I can put like everywhere. Okay, now we have this, right? So I can come up there. I think like this should be fine. Maybe I can copy the logic that we just had for the first image there, like in case there is like something weird or broke, they should be fine. Maybe just change the size. Okay, and now what we are just going to do is to use like some, I can say, widget called like transform. Translate. Let me see. These are just going to miss like some. Okay. And if I do this, then it just switch. Yeah, like for those who just miss it, back, and I change like the X position, and yeah, so we can probably just do the same almost like everywhere. Yeah, and just easily just increment the let me just and do the same for okay. So you have like 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 5 should be like, I don't know, something like yeah, we can just replace this and say let me just show you. Okay, let me just the child. Okay, yeah, and if we want, we can just okay. Yeah, I don't know how do you think about that, but yeah, I think I just like it. At least it's not like too bad. Let me try to see if we can just add a padding directly there, because this is how does it call? Okay, so we have it there. I mean, I don't know if you are seeing it, but yeah, or if I just replace and put red, maybe, yeah, so I think it looks not too bad, at least for now. So yeah, we should be fine with this. So now let's work on the second component. So for that, maybe we should add like some space. And these are going to be like the weekly components. So for the weekly component, very simple. We are just going to use the dates and show based with like a list view builder, for example, and it should just be like scrollable horizontally. Yeah, nothing word or so let me just create like this. Okay. Okay. So first, let's initiate this. I think it is like the time that now. Okay. So this is for getting like the current date, and so yeah. Okay. Okay, perfect. So let's emulate and just we know that it is like we just have like 7 days in the week. Almost it just changed because something just happened in the world, but at least in general, because for some culture, but that's other subject. Yeah. So let's just use yeah, this, and what we're just going to do is to use the index. So in order to know which one is selected, we're just going to check the date, the day, the month with like the current one, Okay, and now we can work on the UI because this was just a logic. Yeah. Everyone should be like clickable, because you should select the date that you want and just return this. Okay. Okay. So let me look for bug shadow. I'm tired of just write this. Okay. Okay. Now let's work on the child. Okay. I mean, the date format thing is just like, you can check the int documentation. Like, there is a different way to write a date. So we are just using like some format that already exists. If I just restart this, I think this is not going to work. Yeah, okay. So we should add like some parameter, and the select date should be, you should have like a select date, and once the date is select, we should just update this, because there we are returning like the select date, right? So let's suppose that we have like a variable called selected date, and this should just replace. So I thought that we had this. What we can do is maybe just use selected like this. Yeah, and use datetime as format. Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. So if I restart, okay, now we have our scoreable list, but this is not working because guess what? We didn't add like the text style. So let's just apply the font size and especially the color as well. Yeah. Okay, and with this, I guess like you can just, yeah, select what you want. Let me just, okay, yeah. What do you think about this? Do you like it or not? I think it's not too bad. So yeah, now let's move, and yeah, we can start working on like the plane section. I think this one should not be like, you know, very long. Let me just copy this, call it there, and yeah, okay. So there we are just going to have like the plane card. Let's call it like just there. And for the plane card, what we're just going to do maybe is just add like different parameters. For now, let me hide like all of these and create like stateless widget. So okay, I'm just going to add like all the information that we are just going to need. Okay. Okay. Actually, I should have like all of this. So the color, difficulties, title, date, time, room, trainer, the image of the trainer, and yeah. I guess we should be good now, and we can start. So on top. Okay. Box decoration. Okay. Okay. So this. Okay, this is not going to work yet. So let's try to finish these components as quickly as possible and then see the result. These are going to be like the best strategy that we got there. So okay. Okay, so you have the date, you have the time. And let's add the room. Okay, I'm just going to add like some fake data for now. For now, some fake data, that's all. So the yellow card, okay. Let's suppose that we have like this for now, like kind of like session data page, even if I know that we are not going to redirect yet, But yeah, I just want to see the result of this. Okay. Okay. This is because I add like the spacer, right? So if I decide, for example, to remove the spacer, what will happen? Nothing. Okay. Let me see. I have this in the column, the date. Okay. Let me just then work on the. Okay. Let's add like the trainer information, like. Oh, okay. Wait. This is something weird. Network image. I mean, this doesn't make sense. It is not an image. I will check the reason that he's saying this. But no. Okay. Okay. This is weird. I mean, this is the string, and he's saying if I run this, am I going to have like an error? And where is the type color there? I don't have like any color type. Let me try to put like some fake image now. Okay, now I get it. I'm just like very dumb, by the way. But yeah, okay. And so, okay. Yeah. Okay. I think now we should be good. Yeah. So let's add like the second. Okay. I'm just going to copy this and copy paste it. So, and just okay. That's normal. I need to extend this. If not, okay. Okay. Okay, yeah. This looks good, and I think the only thing that is missing is like the social media. So yeah, let's add this. I can just copy paste this and work on social media card. This is like very fast, so don't worry. At least what we should have is this. I don't know why. Let me just, okay, yeah, make more sense. And okay, so let's come up there, and these are going to be like very fast. Hope you are ready. Container padding. Can create like these are just going to be like icon data. Okay. Okay, and as you I've already noticed, so we should add. Okay, let me just delete and auto create like those one. What the fuck? Okay, and you guys just let me made like this error, right? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so we have our home page and this one works fine. Yeah, now the next step are going to work on the session and the profile page. Now we are just going to work on session page. So yeah, let me try. So these are just going to be like the session page. Okay, and if you remember, like we just basically did for home page, let me yeah, there we just call like home page directly there. So let's just do the same for okay. If I restart and I click, okay, now we have this. So let me just copy the app bar that we have there. I'm just going to create like a scaffold. Copy the app bar, the background, at least. Okay. So I think I can just, okay, I'm not sure we need a date. Okay, and for the background, yeah, I think we should be fine with this. We can remove this and just keep like the text, like very simple. But it continues. So for the title, I think we can just use some text. Okay, text style, color, text primary, font. Oh, okay. So by default, this should be like true, I think, but you can set it in case it's not like center on Android, and then it will be just center in Android as well. So this should be like for the app bar. Now for the body, as always, sync child square view, padding. Okay, available session. Okay. Okay, so I think it should be good. Let's add like some side box. Let me copy this. Workout session. Okay. And now we are just going to work on session list, but for that, let me create like a session card. And basically, we are just going to need like title. So yoga group, for example, trainer, okay, let's just use this. Tiffany way duration. Card yellow. and just add, for example, okay, we are just going to add other later, but they just work on like the session card, yeah, because this one are going to be like the main point for this view. So the session card, what we can do, let me think. I think we can just do this, repeat this, find our string, color, and void callback. Perfect. So now we are just going to gesture detector, on tab, child, container, padding, decoration, okay. Okay. Later. Okay. So for the color, I think we are just going to have, let me put red for now, but I will make like a dynamic function where we can just change the color, and yeah. Red again. So yeah, let me just try to, okay, so we can see what we are just building. But this thing, okay, because okay, I will work on the color later, I guess, because for now I should just focus on the rest. Yeah, let me just okay. Let's just add like ellipse there for the overflow, and yeah, for this we can keep using S3. Now let's add a row. Let's call this like entry sheet, because now I want to work on this one. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so now this is done. Let's just okay. Now we should put like all of these into row. Yeah. So let me move like this. This should be like in the expand and okay. And the only thing missing there is maybe yeah. Okay, so let's just change this. Get difficulties. Yeah, I should create this function, but yeah. Okay. So now we can add like other let me just I think we should okay, yeah, should be fine. So now we already have like data there. We can You can just change like the data. Okay. Okay. Yeah. And as you can see, let me just make sure about something. Okay. Yeah. I guess it is okay. Okay. So now we have this as the home page and this as session page. Now the next thing are going to be like the profile page, and with like session data page. For example, if I decide to click on this, then it should show me like something. So yeah. So now we are just going to work on the profile page. So let's create like this profile page that we just have there, and what we are just going to do basically is to start with the app bar. So for the app bar, we should initialize like a scaffold. You're going to have the app bar, the body. Okay. You can open this and try just to import the design token one. Okay. I don't think like we need like lead in there. Let's adjust the title. Can copy this one and profile. Okay. Okay. So if I restart this and click on profile, then I'm just going to have this. So now in the body, let's add like single child scroll view. So we are just going to have children, and there are three main components that we are just going to have, like the user profile section that are just going to show up like the profile, the metric card, and the activity list basically. So let me just add Okay, so these are going to be the first one that we are just going to work, and later we are just going to have like metrics card in order to display like some metrics if you want, and yeah, activity list, for example. So let's start with let me just try to with like user profile section. For the user profile section, basically we are just going to have like the profile picture, for example, that we will show up there with some information. So yeah. Okay. Let's look up for this. Just going to use like this. Okay. Yeah. So for example, if I decide to put like, I'm not sure like this image is going to work. Yeah, so if the image is not working, then it's just going to show like this, basically. But if you have the image, then it will just fit the clip oval component that we are using. Yeah. So okay. Now we are just going to add like user information, basically. So for that, let's, for example, add expanded. So let's add the user address there. So we can add like Okay, so we have the title, the name, so there we can just change. Okay. So this is like the follower number. Okay, the follow and the follower number. So yeah, should show up like this. I'm just thinking maybe you should add like some action. Yeah. Because this is raw, right? So okay. So let me just finish this and just show you the shirt. So now we are just going to add like the icon for the edit as well. Let's suppose that it is I'm sure, right? Yeah, edit icon. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So we have shirt and like edit profile, for example, you know. So if you just come up there, you can just enable this and say stateless. Okay. Let's create like a custom metric card. That we are just going to pass parameter. Okay. we are just going to pass like a color, the title, and the value. So this is what we are just going to work on. And okay, so these are just going to be like, you know, because we want to show the title and the value, so we need to pass like parameter, if you see what I mean. So final color, okay, okay. Box decoration color. Okay, text primary. Okay, yeah, as you can see, we just have this, but we can just decide, I don't know, and create like some fake data. So for example, maybe we should let me I think we can remove this. Okay, not too bad. Not too bad. Okay, and now the last one that we should work on is like activity list, basically. So for that, yeah, let me just create activity list. Yeah, let's create the first of all the item that you're just going to need. This is just like a component, same as we just did for metric card, you know, and yeah. Let's add a border. Okay. Okay. Icon gray. Okay. So whatever. Let me copy this. Okay, now we can use this one inside the activity list like this. So physical activities, and yeah, I say 2 days ago. And further on top, I mean, you can add if you want. Let's say statistic, for example. Yeah. So those are like you can see it like it is just hard coded. Flash on. Yeah, you see. So we have this. I mean, you can add as much you want. Like, I don't know. Say best time, for example, or I don't know, like sure. No. So yeah, you have access to almost like everything there. So yeah, now we have our profile page, our session page, and almost, let me see something. Okay, yeah. Because it was weird. I was seeing like different color, so okay. Yeah, I mean, this looks great, though. So now we are just going to integrate. If you remember, if I want to pub spec, we have Rive that we just add there, right? So what is Rive? Basically, Rive, this is not like partnership, so yeah, let me just clarify before start. But Rive, let me just also, for example, try to wonder. Okay, you know, so Rive is just like animation tools that aim to facilitate, for example, if you want to build like some cool stuff or cool UI or make it like very interactive, for example, you can use Rive. It is like very similar for those who have already used Lottie, for example, for animation stuff, you know. But the thing with Rive is you can directly come there and try to, for example, if I click on get started, you can customize your own animation. But that's not what we are just going to do there. But you can just went to the editor.rive.app/home and try to take, for example, some tutorial and learn how to do it. But in our case, what we are just going to do is to come to the community. There is already like a marketplace where some people have already shared like some cool stuff, you know, basically. So what we are just going to do is, for example, search like one keyword. you have like some cool and fun stuff there. So what you can do is select just one. You can like, of course, for example, click on preview. Then this is going to open like the editor for Rive. So if you want to change something, if you know how to do it, then feel free. In my case, I'm just going to export the file. So export like, let me first of all try just to clean up. Yeah, and clean up this and just restart again. So export. So once you export this, what we are just going to do, I can now close it, for example, and we are just going to add it like directly there, like in image section. So my file are just going to call, for example, animation. So what I'm just going to do is to drag and drop like animation directly into image there. Yeah, should be fine. And in the home page, let me see, because I wanted to add it like there. Yeah, like there is. Okay. So yeah, let's just create like a container there. So what we are just going to do, even for this one, we can remove this, and for the color, use yeah. So for example, if I put like image there and okay. Okay, so we should show our animation there. That is exactly what we are just going to do. So let's, for example, try to set like some size, and there we are just going to use const and try to import Rive, for example, directly. So if you want to avoid like some error, you can just import and put like some alias. This should be like very good. So where does, okay, so here we can use like Rive animation.asset. You also have like Rive animation.network. It is like very similar to like using image.network, for example, if you already have like a link or whatever. So in our case, we are just going to use asset, images, and then what is the name again? Yeah, okay, animation.rive. Yeah. And this is what we are just going to use, basically, like very simple. Let me see if I decide to run this, we should actually have this if it's working. Let's close and restart our app. Yeah, I just make sure it's work. So this is like very simple, but if you want to do like things like that's very deep, you can just go to their website directly. And as you can see it, I don't know if you are seeing it, this is just like a small animation, very similar to Lottie, by the way. And yeah, you have this person with the flame, and yeah, that's all. So yeah, that's cool though. Okay, perfect. Now we are just going to build something more interesting. Like as you can see, we have our different page, like the home, the session, and the profile. That's good. I mean, we can literally just build any kind of UI because I know you are good. That's not the point. But now I'm just going to show you how to test this by using, there's different kind of tests we have already learned in this channel, like unit test, widget test, and so on. But now we are just going to talk today about golden test. What is golden test basically, and how does it work? I'm just going to show you directly how like the golden test work and how could be like the pros and cons about that. Yeah. But first of all, yeah, let me I'm just going to go back to pub spec basically. And inside pub spec, we are just going to add a new dependencies that's called like mock image network. These are just going, like, the name is pretty straightforward. So we are just going to mock like some image network during our test, you know. And before we just start, let's make like a pub get in order to just update like the pub spec. And then we are just going to come directly in our test. So in our test, the first thing that I'm just going to do in this test, there is like different components. Some people, when they want to test something, basically they want to test like the whole page, or but in my case, I prefer to test like some behavior about like some specific component, for example. The main purpose of golden test is to help you to manage or to avoid, for example, if you are making like a regression test, for example. Yeah, let's suppose that tomorrow, for example, I came on my app, I delete, for example, this widget in my home, like called I don't know. Yeah, let's suppose that I delete like the daily challenge, but I should not delete or change the wording, for example. This is just going to show up and say, hey, there is something weird and you change like something, so you should fix it, you know, basically. And yeah, that's how it's work. But what I really like the most is it create like an image, and this is what we are just going to see. So in our case, the first thing that we are just going to do is to create a config files, you know. And in this config files, this is very simple. I'm just going to have like feature void and call this like golden setup. And in my golden setup, yeah, I'm just going to load app font. Very simple. So for that, I need to import the golden toolkit. And for this, yeah. So it means that we should install the golden toolkit that we need. Just, where is the test? Okay. Pubget. Okay. Okay, perfect. Now the first thing that we are just going to test is, for example, we can test like the daily challenge. We can test like different, like, let me just went back to the home page. As you can notice, in our body, we have different components. The first one, daily challenge card, weekly list component. We have also like plan card. So like each big or main section can be tested, but in my case, for example, I'm just going to take like this one. Yeah, you know, the card one, and try to make the test. I think once you just understand how this works, basically you can just do order by yourself. Yeah. So first of all, as you can see, we just made like this how can I call it, like private, but we can just change it and just make it public, for example, by just remove this. Okay. Now let's create a file called plan card golden test. Okay, so what we are just going to do basically in this file is to test the plan card variant. So let's create for example void main, and we are just going to set up all, and for that we should have like golden setup. Yeah, so it means like every time you are just going to run like any call, these are going to load up font, and this is just for getting like fixed font for every test that we are just going to make, and there we're not going to have like something weird. So let's call this plain card variant, for example, and we are just going to have okay. Okay, this is fixed. Okay, so this is just to have like fixed I can say size for where we are just going to draw our different components. But let's just create the builder, because this is what are going to be like the most important thing in our test. So I'm just going to have like scenario. So for each test we are just going to make, like for golden test you should have like a scenario basically. So in my case, and the reason that I wanted to build like all of this before is to have like kind of a template of real application, for example, and not just show something based on, you know, random thing. So now let me close other tab and open only home page. So in homepage, as you can see, we want to test like this whole section basically. So we can come up there and let's say just have this. And for the DT, it means that we should import our design token. So there, I'm just going to import the okay, perfect. For this one, we don't care about and yeah, basically we should just have this, you know, very similar to what we already have. And so let me see. Okay, there I can just set up the material that I'm using right now. So material 3. And here is the place where you can define the width and the height of the, I can say, the size of the surface that you want to draw it. And now let's just specify the name of the file that where we are just going to save like all of this. So if I have something like this, then I can come up and just run my test now. So let me just delete this because we don't need this. Let clear. And if you want to run your test, the commands are just going to be like test go. Okay, let me create like then in case, for example, in future you want to add like unit test, for example, it is better to just separate them and call it like this is the command if you change like anything in your test and you want to run it like every time, for example. So if I run this, basically it should fail because we don't have the snapshot or the image currently. So he say, yeah, found one widget with, so he is looking for this image plain card variant, but he can't find it basically. So what we are just going to do is to call the command update golden, and as you can see, if I open this, I can see like there is like new image, and this was created automatically by Flutter. So you have the text just called like your plan session because this is just the title of the scenario itself. And then you can have like all of this. It is kind of like a snapshot of the whole section that we have there, you know. And you have the medium, you have the light, and yeah. So if I don't know, we change something in the plan card, for example, let's suppose that we yeah, let me just remove this. Okay, and if I want to run the text, now you can see that he's just create like a failure folder. And what is weird, I mean not weird, but what is cool there, he's going to say like you are running the same test, but previously this is kind of my snapshot, so I'm trusting this file, and every time you are just going to run plain card variant test, for example, we should have this as result, even if you change something, or at least if you didn't update the existing one. So we should have this, and if you pass like new parameter every time, the front end, if I can call it like that, should looks like this. So what is happened is when I run the new test, you can see that I didn't change almost anything in the text right now, but just in the front end I removed the border radius. So he just going to create a failure folder and tell me what is going wrong. So if I check like the master image, this is what it should looks like. If I check the test image, this is the new result that I just had since I removed the border radius, right? And now if I use the mask div, he's just going to show me the difference between the real snapshot and the current version that I had with my new since I just removed the border radius. And you can see it, he's drawing it and say, yeah, there's something that's missing. And yeah, you know, he can show you the isolate difference, and it is the border radius itself. So this is when, and I found like, since I have learned those kind of tests, I try to implement them sometime when the app require like a really structure about the UI. So you can see like changes, for example, and that's almost the same. If I can delete, for example, the failure, he's going to regenerate like the failure every time there is something weird. And let's suppose that, I don't know, we remove, for example, or unfortunately there is something that changed, like the size, and yeah, and we run the test again. He's going to say, oh, there is something weird. Even if you can't, sometimes don't see it with your eyes, he's going to say, hey, come here, yeah, and this is the original one, and this is what you got. And you are just going to say, there is almost no difference. What is the difference? And he's going to say, yeah, the text size is not the same anymore. And the difference should be like some spacing or something weird, you know. And if you come up there and just set up like it was before and run the text, then it should pass. So yeah, this is the main reason that I want you to follow this tutorial, and now here we are. I hope you just like this. Don't hesitate to like the video. I know I can just start basically with this at the beginning of the video, but you know, this won't be like very fun though. Yeah, thanks, and guys, we are working on new format that are going to come up soon. Just be there, and yeah, bye.